TV. Welcome to the webinar. I'll give some more people some time to join. Meanwhile, I'll try to set up the screen. By now, you should see a slide that says live webinar July 6th. Let me show that on a bigger screen. There we go. First of all, do all of you see the slides? If somebody wants to answer, there's a chat function. If you just say, "Yoo-hoo, we see the slides," that would be great. Same time, do you see my guest Wouter and me, Steven Peck? And do you hear us? I get a go. It seems like everybody hears and sees us and sees the slides. Well, it's 1:02. I think everyone had 1 extra minute to join. But let's go for this webinar about talent acquisition is a revenue driver, not a cost center. So the webinar is hosted by Simple. Just very, very briefly for people who don't know what we do. Well, we provide access to qualified candidates by targeting them on social media. We have a whole suite that allows to follow the candidates, to publish social media campaigns, etc. What sets us apart, we do this about a gazillion times per month, analyze data to optimize campaigns. Our users are mostly people who have no marketing experience. We make it very easy. That's why we call it Simple. We've done this over 10,000 times right now. We do it in 34 countries. And maybe, very interesting, why do we do this? With our suite, we try to reach passive candidates, people who are not actively looking for a new job. And most of the candidates that you see through our platform are passive candidates. We have over 520 customers, ranging from small companies to SMEs to big powerhouses. You see some of them right here. I should have said that at the start. I'm Steven Peck. I'm one of the 2 founders of Simple. So working with this already for a long time. And first of all, or foremost, I have to apologize because I start talking about myself and I start talking about Simple. And that's a pity because we have a great guest today, somebody who is a fantastic name in HR in Belgium, leading HR for a multinational investment company, Wouter van Linden. And I'll let Wouter present himself.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you, Steven. Thank you for having me here, for the invitation. So happy to cover today's topic on the talent acquisition, not a cost center, but a driver for revenue. And I think this is also applicable to HR in general, but I will expand on this later on. Just for the people who don't know me, and I think a lot of you don't know me probably, I've been active in HR now for the last almost 20 years, after having started my career at PwC, where I was an attorney at law, but specialized in employment law, so let's say employee-related matters. Then I moved over to KPMG, where I've been head of people for Belgium, and then the last 2 years, head of people for EMA. So I spent there 15 years. And then I got a great opportunity to join Waterland Private Equity. It's indeed a European investment fund with 185 employees for the moment, 13 countries, 13 offices. And so they're as well in charge of the people agenda. Really starting from scratch. That was a great challenge that I accepted. So happy to have joined now Waterland.
Unfortunately, we only have 30 minutes because otherwise I would try to explain what Wouter has done throughout his career. You can read some of the things. I think we can talk half an hour about his career, but unfortunately, Wouter, this is not about you. No, that was not what you were intended to have. But anyhow, before I start, one more thing. I think, and now I have to the right, you see a chat button. During and after the webinar, but also during, you can ask us anything as long as it's professional and ethical. Just go for it. Chat. There's a moderator, my co-founder Mark, who will moderate the questions and who will feed us questions. So don't hesitate to ask us anything. Or if something's bothering you or something goes wrong, just put it in the chat. Anyway, what's the scope for today? Introduction. We've been there. Or we'll go slightly again over it. Then what's the current perception of talent acquisition? What could be an approach to reposition yourself, and what would be the first steps? Now, setting the scene, introduction. We were talking about cost centers and profit centers or revenue drivers. For those, small refresher for those who don't know, why don't you want to be a cost center? Well, cost center is throughout the organization is monitored based on costs, how much it costs to operate, while we think that HR is much more than that. HR, especially in this tight market throughout Europe or throughout the world, more and more is a revenue driver and is one of the main challenges for every organization. How can I find the right people? Revenue drivers are measured differently. They're measured by indicators such as sales volume, price, etc. But the main thing is that revenue drivers will be seen as a source of revenue. How can you increase your revenue? How can you use talent acquisition to increase your revenue? I don't know, Wouter, do you want to elaborate a bit more on the advantages?
Yeah, maybe consider this as a kind of setting the scene. And maybe first of all, I don't want to convince anyone. I mean, I'm really happy to be challenged by you, Steve, and also by the audience if you're not agreeing with what I'm telling. And also to make it clear, it is about talent acquisition, but I'm not a recruiter myself. I mean, I've been always active in compensation benefits. That's my core. And then I moved over to an HR general position. So, but I mean, I've always been working closely with the recruitment teams. And so I think what's important as part of setting the scene is that, let's maybe take a step back. HR has for me never been, well, let's put it a different way. I've never liked it when I was called a business partner as an HR team. I think HR is the business of an organization, period. And I think HR can show that it's the business if there are maybe many things that HR should do, but I think one of the things, the most important things, is that they should show curiosity. I think it's really important that HR knows what the organization is doing, what are the products, what are the services, because the HR is not only serving the employees of an organization. I think HR should also serve, at the end of the day, the customers of an organization. I think this is sometimes forgotten. The clients are important. That's why you should know, like, what are the products, what are the services, and at the end of the day, how does the company create added value, or just to say it in different words, how does a company generate revenue and make profits? I call it maybe happy profits. I think that's important. This curiosity is something that I'm sometimes missing also in my team with new HR people. A second thing I think that's important for HR is HR should start adopting an adult-to-adult mentality. I think far too much HR is like teaching things to the rest of the organization. And there as well, I think it's a matter of giving trust to the organization, to the team members. It's a matter of showing maturity. And I think that if then you can combine this curiosity with then this adult-to-adult maturity, then I think HR will get more visibility within the company, but HR will also get more credibility within the company. And then I think you will have your C-suits, they will listen to you, you will have the right focus. And I think at that time, nobody should question whether HR should have a seat at the table. It sometimes surprises me when I see people posting their LinkedIn profiles, and then I'm referring to HR people, that they explicitly mention, I'm an HR director and I'm a manager of the management team. I must say, I've never seen a CFO posting this on his LinkedIn account. So it's really a matter of HR should position themselves like, yes, I see, I have my seat at the table. And then I think if you then have all those traits all together, then I think it will be easier to make sure that HR will not be seen as a cost center, but as a revenue driver. And just to give you an example, and maybe specifically on talent acquisition, if you can, let's say, any random organization where you can say that a day of productivity will generate revenue of 100, just to name a figure. If you can demonstrate that by having extra people or extra resources like digital tools that will help you in getting people quicker and sooner in the company, then I think it's like a no-brainer that you can make this investment, because on every day that you have new people on board will generate more people and more revenue. So this means that if you have like 100 people on a yearly basis to recruit, 100 times 100, that's 10,000 for every day. So that's on a yearly basis, that's like 20 million. So I mean, for me, the business case is like, it's a no-brainer and speaks for itself. But you have to make sure that you don't put the emphasis on like what is the cost per hire or what is my lead time, because those KPIs, in my view, are giving a bit of a negative tendency, where I think you should rather focus on what's the added value for the organization and how can you indeed go trigger this revenue generation.
Just if I can just add, if any of you still feel like they're the underdog, don't. Recent studies have shown that, have asked CEOs, what is the top 3 things you lie awake about at night? And one of the top 3 was having the right people and the right organization. So you're absolutely all key to organizational success. Wouter, maybe we were talking about some myths about talent acquisition or how it's perceived. Maybe you can explain a little about it.
Show me, what is the first myth?
First of all, HR doesn't have any understanding of the needs of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to repeat what I've just been telling you. If HR indeed doesn't have an understanding of the needs of the business, then HR is not doing a good job. And again, by showing this curiosity and understanding what the business is doing and knowing what the clients want, then I think immediately you will understand that's where HR can add this value and where the urgency is. So yeah, for me this is like,
I think you just made the case.
Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah, I was not aware that this myth was coming. So
this was an easy myth.
That was an easy myth. Yeah, thanks.
Second of all, and it's more related to talent acquisition, there's plenty of candidates out there. Why don't you find them?
Well, if this is true, then I think then HR is not making use of the available tools and the available channels. I think this is a matter of making sure that your employer branding is working, that you have a good website, and that you have indeed visibility on social media. But there as well, you should, as an organization, as an HR team, define like what are the best suited channels for my organization. So that's one thing, I think. Then second thing is, I mean, nowadays you can easily launch some targeted campaigns. You can easily individually track candidates. So it's a matter of making sure that you find for your organization the right tools, and that then you can directly identify and target those candidates. The tools are available. So I think if this is true for an HR team, then I would say do your homework, see what are the needs of your organization, and yeah, make a turnaround to make sure that you find the candidates. And digitalization can of course help in this exercise, but also be aware, don't jump too quickly on the best solution. And so test it out, be critical, do a pilot. I think that's important. And then also pay attention to integration. I think I've seen too many standalone solutions that are maybe serving one cause, but then I'm always lacking this element of integration. And so it's about sourcing candidates, it's about selecting candidates, about hiring them, but then you have also the next step, like onboarding, you have reward payroll, you have development. So make sure training, make sure that all these elements can get some kind of integration. And then the last thing maybe is also then in terms of selecting, make sure that you are making use of the right tools. And so there as well, digitalization can help you, and I'll come back later on employee experience. But this is like, so this is a myth, hopefully not true for too many HR teams, but I think there the tools are available and the solutions on the market. Yeah,
the fact that there's plenty of candidates out there, same survey that I talked about earlier said that 90% of the companies in Europe says the problem is not selecting the right candidate, it's finding candidates, it's having candidate supply. So numbers throughout Europe show that it's not the case. There's plenty of candidates out there. There's plenty of possibilities out there, but it doesn't mean that there's abundantly available candidates. Myth number 3, and we're going into space now. Whole recruiting process is a black hole. Nobody knows what happens.
Yeah. I can understand this, but I think in this domain, HR should show their expertise and their professionalism. So it's important that then an HR team that have clear processes and procedures, and also make sure that you involve the entire organization in the setup of the recruiting process, that you know what they need and that they know what you need to make the recruiting process a success. Again, going back to the previous points, digitise, where relevant, but don't over digitize. Also make sure that your organization is mature enough for those digital tools. Test the recruitment process, and also ask for feedback from the managers involved, because in the end of the day, HR is not only about the HR team. HR is, for me, the entire organization is HR, and the entire organization should support the recruiting process, where HR is like a facilitator. And also, maybe to add, I've just mentioned candidate experience. This is also important, of course, in the recruitment process, and make sure that that your candidates, that they have a good idea of your employer branding, that they know how to apply, that this process is also working seamlessly, that they have an insight in the process, that they know how many interviews should they do, what kind of testing should they do, make sure that you're making use of the right tools. And the people who know me, they know that I'm a bit skeptical with all the available tools, not to name them the MBTIs and the insights of this world. But there as well, digitization can also enhance the candidate experience. So definitely make use of this. And make sure that you can set yourself apart from the competition, because this is also what employees want to see and candidates want to see. And the last element maybe is that once you have then hired anyone, during the onboarding follow-up, ask them how did they experience the recruiting process. Also learn from them, because they're now no longer a candidate, they're now one of your employees, and they can also help you in making the recruiting process better.
Yeah, and that's one thing I personally like a lot, because I know all of you are over challenged in time, and you have 20 hours to work and only 8 to 10 per day to do it. But that's an important point. Candidates kind of put their soul on the table. They invest in your company. Try to treat them nice. And it's not a matter of not wanting to, it's a matter of time, but make time for it. It's kind of like karma. It will come back to you later on when you don't expect it. Fourth of all, probably one I want to personally comment on, but recruitment agencies are overpriced.
I think this is not a myth. This is probably true. And I'm not going to say this is one of my favorite ones, but I like to start negotiating with recruitment agencies on the price. So this is for me sometimes a fun part of the job. But yeah, I will leave it over to you maybe to further comment on this. I think it's true.
We're not a recruitment agency. I've worked at recruitment agencies in the past. I'll kind of defend them. Recruitment agencies a lot of time work in a sort of a no cure no pay, or or based on a percentage of salary. The problem is that every time somebody does not hire, they don't get paid. So every time you hire, they get paid a lot, but it's to compensate for every non-hire. This being said, I think that the model should change. I can see why people think they're overpriced. I can understand. I think that's one of the things that we do. Actually, we try to flip around the model and focus on sourcing and getting paid for sourcing, not for hiring, so that you can lower costs. I see where it's coming from, but it's a bit easy to say. Again, we are not a recruitment agency, but I kind of want to go on the fence for them. They ask a lot for every time that there's no hire.
Yeah.
Now, how do we fix this? And since we have an expert in house, I'll let Wouter talk about it.
Okay, surprise me.
ChatGPT will fix this.
Yeah, I heard about this yesterday for the first time. So I'm not a techie, so I mean I'm not an expert at all. What I know is that what I hear is that it's not a finished product. I think so. You can say you ain't seen nothing yet. It's maybe another tech enabler, one of the many, I don't know, who will tell. And I don't think that it's like a one-size-fits-all solution. So from what I know, it's also mainly based on text. I mean, like audio, video is not integrated in ChatGPT. But again, I'm not a techie. I know that in terms of security, privacy, there is some bias around ChatGPT. So I would say it's a tool, and again, what I mentioned before, it's a tool that you should explore, see to what extent there's a fit with your organization, but it's not a final solution.
It goes back to what you said before. Exactly. It's like use technology, don't get abused by technology.
Again, it's about HR showing curiosity, and I think that's also something you can demonstrate internally when you're sitting at a table with your management team, that you know that this is coming our way or has already come our way. but stay critical. I mean, have a good level of criticism when it comes to those kind of innovations. And this is also, let's say, what I experienced as head of HR now over all those years, is that I've always been on the outlook of what's happening on the market, what are the new tools, but I've never seen myself as an innovator. I was more like an early adopter. I first wanted other companies, organizations to test it out, and then I wanted to jump on the train. And again, also make sure that when you're like considering those kind of tools, integration is also important. Don't forget that you're always those standalone tools. I don't like it, because then you will see after a while you will have some technical issues, and then you can't integrate the data. And so, but I'm repeating myself now.
Your IT department will adore you.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one that's closer to home, that I am a firm believer in, but I'm going to show it. And you already said something about it, so happy to hear. We simply believe HR should think more like marketing. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'll place you. I think it's true. But I think HR can also learn from other departments, not only from marketing. And the other way around, I think marketing and the other departments, they can also learn from HR. So it's like, I don't want HR to be this Calimero type, where you're like saying like, oh, they're bigger than I am and they're stronger. But I think it's important that HR should learn from marketing how to analyze certain data. Like marketing has indeed an advantage when it comes to using data. So there's also for HR, I think it's important that you make sure that you have information on the labor market, your own organization. What are the needs? How can you link them to each other? What about competitive intelligence? I think that's important. Also salary benchmark information. There you see it on the slide. I think HR should start by analyzing all this data, collecting those data, know the data, and then from those data, make sure that you take the right decisions. I think an HR professional should always know like how many people do we have in the company, how many hires on a yearly basis, how many vacancies do we have, what is the attrition rate, for instance, what is the level of engagement within the organization. And I think in all this data can link back to the budget that has been set at the company level. And there as well, then you can see that HR will have an impact on the eventual budget of an organization. So yeah, exactly. So it's about making sure that those data and the entire process is transparent, and then that all the stakeholders, again, it's not only about HR itself, but also the hiring manager, all external parties, that they know how you're working, involve them in your processes so that it's really transparent for them, and also integrate their feedback. And then, of course, you can set for yourself some KPIs, but I'm not a hard KPI believer. Having said this, I don't think that sometimes it's like HR is a soft business. No, I think HR is a hard business, but make sure that the KPIs that you use, that those are relevant KPIs for your organization again, and don't let KPIs paralyze your thinking and your acting.
You almost hurt my soul when you said I'm not a firm believer in KPIs.
Yeah.
Because I am, but I like the way you framed it at last, saying don't let them paralyze you. KPIs are important, but they're just telling the story. Make the story instead of continuously reading the KPIs. Now, where we want to go to, and where we're firm believers in, is in data-driven recruitment. What we've been talking about before, and if you're going about data-driven recruitment, for us, there's, coming back also to what Wouter said before, there's a couple of steps that are really important. First of all, know your metrics. And for some companies, it can be we don't have enough candidates, or the throughput time is not enough, or the quality of candidates is not high enough, or we get a lot of friction from candidates who are not happy. So know what your metrics are. Should you focus on throughput time? Should you focus on candidate NPS? Should you focus on number of candidates, quality of candidates? But identify for your organization, and that's really one of the important things. What are the metrics that are important to me, and where can I get them? Second of all, and also very important, build a recruitment dashboard. Make it visible. People can see the work that you're doing, where the problems lie, and how you're solving them, and how it's evolving over time. So if you have a dashboard, you can start reading KPIs and start working with them. What actions do you need to take to get better? Yeah, of course, there's always where can I get the data, what's the limitations, etc. And I think the last thing goes without saying. When you have metrics, when you have dashboards, compare. Where were we when we started? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And the benefits are could be numerous. It could be, like I said before, it could be faster hiring or less bias or better candidate experience. And we talked about karma before. Pretty important. Don't forget that one. But there's lots of benefits. It depends on the goals you want to achieve. But data-driven recruitment is key to be more and more successful. And thanks to AI HR to point this out. And then probably wondering what this is. I was wondering before what this is. There's actually a slide to tell you one thing. Digitization is key. Wouter already said it at the start. Digitize. Why? Well, pretty simple. Better control. You get full transparency. You can create access to all stakeholders, and all stakeholders have access to the whole process. You get real-time insights. You get easier communication. You can tell a story. You can act upon it. You can take the data-driven decisions that Wouter was talking about based on KPIs. I know he's not a big believer, but I'm sure he believes this. Measure and then decide. Act. And the advantage is pretty simple. You'll get buy-in within the organization. You'll get a stronger organization. You'll get better hires. Now, how should you start this? I'll get into that a bit more, but yeah, start planning. Plan it out. What's the roadmap? Where do we want to go? What are the measures we need? Who needs to be involved? How can we make quick wins? Pretty important for project management. How can we show that this is really relevant? Start by building an MVP, minimum viable product. It's something that comes out of the startup world. A lot of organizations and big organizations, and I get all of you. I've been part of big organizations, but try to work out a solution that is complete. Work 2 years on a solution, and then you see that it doesn't make any sense. So start small and grow from that, or grow from that point. Data, I hope we already convinced you. Collect as much data as possible on what's relevant for you, and get all stakeholders on board. It's not only an HR thing. As I repeat, Wouter, HR is not a standalone part of the organization. It is the organization. It's key to the organization, but get all your stakeholders on board. Could be finance, could be marketing, could be strategy, could be CEO. Get all of them on board. How should you start? At the fear of repeating myself, it's about project management. Get the right people on board, define roles and responsibilities. What elements do you want to tackle first? Where's the problem? Well, how can you find out what the problem is? For us, it's pretty simple. Look at your recruitment funnel. It goes from sourcing, attracting the right candidates, to managing candidates during the process, interviewing, screening, on offers, onboarding, and then now focusing on recruiting, not on what happens after they're recruited. But where do you see issues? Is it more upstream in sourcing and managing candidates, or is it more downstream in screening and offers? Look at the funnel and look at where your issues lie. And for every step in the funnel, there's different tools and tactics that you can use to make it better. Once you've seen this, I think you should look at your ideal tech stack. And repeating Wouter, think about the process as a whole. It's not find the best tool X or Y. It's about what works best for your entire organization, not for that specific topic. But if you look at tech stack, it means it could go from where do people see you? Is it on a website? What should it look like? What information do you need there? How can I track what happens over there? How can I integrate this with an ATS, with an applicant tracking system? How can I manage recruitment marketing? How can I attract people by spreading the news? All these should be part of your tech stack. And I'm warning you now, there's a small commercial coming in here. Guess who does this? We could do that. We could do that for you. But we'll get you can have more information if you'd like afterwards. I'm repeating Wouter again because he's too smart for me. But one of the things that he said and that we think is really important, don't forget the candidate. This is not about you. This is about us. This is about making sure that people who are, it's kind of like dating, it doesn't always work out, but you kind of want to leave the table with the other person being happy, although no relationship is coming forward from it. This is really, really important, I think, in recruiting, in candidate management. Make sure they're happy. People know that they get a yes. It's about, I don't know, a talk to hire ratio of 5%. So they know that in 95% of the cases they don't get a job. But it doesn't mean they cannot be happy. If you want to know more on what you can do, what are best practices, etc., we have an academy. I think right now, if Mark is doing his job, which he always does, there's a link in the chat where you can get access to Simple Academy full of white papers on how to get the whole of this process right. A lot of information has come to you. Maybe we'll do a quick wrap up. And if there's questions, please do not hesitate to ask us questions. We're there to answer them to you. Now, but wrapping up, maybe I'll let the expert do some wrap up.
Okay, now you surprised me. Maybe first of all, apologies because I just realized I'm standing all the time in front of your logo.
No, sorry.
Yeah, what more can I tell? I think it's important that the first topic on make sure that you know your organization, that you put the emphasis on the right elements. By showing curiosity, having this adult-to-adult mentality, and understand what drives revenue in the organization, and act accordingly. HR is business. I want you to remember this. Second thing, digitization is key. I agree, but I would like to add maybe it's a key consideration. It's not a magic formula. So I think I want to invite everybody to explore what are the available tools and how can these tools help you to bring HR and your team to the next level. I think that's a nuance, but don't let it paralyze yourself. I'm a big fan of KPIs, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of digital tools, but make sure that your organization is ready for this and make sure that you're making use of the right tools and KPIs. And indeed, let's start small, a bit with easy steps, with baby steps maybe. Create a pilot, test the results, seek for feedback, and work around the pilots. I mean, what I've done in the past is like creating a pilot, and then you should create a bit of fuss around the pilots. And then you see that other departments, they were like, what's happening in that team? I also want to have the same. And then so you see that a bottom-up approach is working better than this top-down approach where you will then just install a tool and say, okay, guys, come on now, you follow all this. Make sure that you have the organization with you by creating this fuss, and it should work like a virus bit. And I think by organizing this as a pilot, you can better create this. That's my takeaway for today.
Maybe, and I'm going to surprise you once more, but there's an interesting comment from a person called Richard. Thank you, Richard. And it's kind of wrapping up actually, but Richard says, look, I do wonder if the focus on recruitment is increasingly on the process rather than on the person. Now, your job, your sense of value and belonging are huge when thinking about a new role. Automated and data-heavy recruitment makes individuals feel processed and commoditized. Systems need to have a human element. So balance efficiency, digitization, and automation with personal contact and belonging. Is there anything you want to say about that?
No, I think, Richard, you're 200% right. And again, this is then also like, how do you want the candidates to look at your organization in terms of the latest tool you have, but also indeed never forget this is a part of your process, like these interactions. I mean, if I look at Waterland, for instance, I have no problem in having the first interview via Teams. But then round 2, round 3, we will have several interviews. There's also never hide yourself away behind the tool, behind the tests, but also look for those interactions, because it's not only about you learning more about the candidate, but also about the candidate learning a lot more about yourself. So absolutely. And again, that's what I mean, like, don't let digital tools paralyze your process and your organization. The focus should be on digitalization, but also on all the other elements. And you have to find the right balance in what is now best serving my organization in attracting and hiring the best talent.
nothing I can add, but Richard, indeed, you were 200% right. And I think we all believe what you said. Any other questions that anybody has that we can solve for you? Just, I'll give you some more information, but do not hesitate to ask us anything as we're close to wrapping up. Now, suppose that you want to do it yourself. One of the things you can start with is something that we call a recruitment scan. It's like, again, and I'm coming back to Richard, digitization is needing to help you, but the help is not to get the process in order. I think you're right. People are much too much focused on processes. You need to get your process in order to get your recruitment and your hiring and your talent acquisition one level higher. And one level higher is probably one level more human. But if you want to know where you're at right now, there's a recruitment scan you can do. If you send me an email, it's Steven@simple with a Y, Steven@simple.be. I can tell you how you can do it, or we could do it for you. Just send me an email. I'll get you the information probably by tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'm looking at my screen below me to see if there's any more questions, anything else we can solve for you. Looking at Mark. Then I was going to say question shoot, but since you're not shooting, I guess everything was clear for you. I can, first of all, and very importantly, sometimes we have guests on the show. They always add a lot of trueness, a lot of coming from the field, a lot of knowledge that's from people out there, not from theorists. So I would like to thank Wouter. You were a great guest on the show. You gave us great insights on how you work, on what you think is important. I will not hold it against you that you're not an absolute believer of the KPIs, but I do understand why. It's not about the KPIs, it's about getting the story better. Thank you for telling your story to our guests. So if you have any more questions, you could always mail me, Steven@simple.be, or if you would have questions for Wouter, it would be at vanlinden@waterland.be. You'll all get, I think I'm looking at Mark, you'll all get the presentation afterwards, so no need to write it down. Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope this was useful for you. There's one more thing. We talked about NPS a lot. We think NPS is one of the keys in everything we do. I think right now, again, looking at Mark, there's a link in the chat. We would like your feedback on how you found the webinar. We can always learn. Give us critical feedback. We'll take it with us onto the next webinar. So if you would take 1 minute of your time, maybe 2 minutes. What?
1 second even.
It's just 1 second. But 1 second and a comment, that would be 10 seconds. But tell us what you found about it. There's a lot we can learn from it. I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon, fantastic end of the week tomorrow, fantastic weekend, and even the time after that. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you around somewhere sometime. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.